4:10 a.m. on 1st of January 1886. The first wisps of dawn fog still curled over the Thames, and the respectable terraced houses along Cleverton Street sat in near silence. The gas lamps, pale and jaundiced against a gray-blue sky, barely lit the dark facades. At number 85, the landlord, Mr. Doug, had only just slipped from his warm blankets when a faint knock sounded below. He threw on a dressing gown, descended the stairs, and opened the door. A chill gust carrying the river's damp breath swept into the hallway. Standing on the step was his young lodger, Adelaide Bartlett, 27, impeccably dressed, yet her face was as colorless as winter moonlight.
"Mr. Doug,"
she said, her voice unnervingly calm,
"could you come downstairs and look at my husband? I fear he is no longer breathing."
Doug stepped into the bedroom. The kerosene lamp had been relit, its warm yellow flame dancing over the pale wallpaper. The embers in the fireplace were cold, and a chill was settling over the room. Crossing the thick Persian rug, he caught a faint, curious sweetness in the air, half sugar, half solvent. The bedclothes were slightly rumpled. On the bedside table sat a half-finished brandy glass, a thin pool of amber clinging to the bottom. Nearby, Adelaide murmured that when her husband lost consciousness, she had tried to revive him with the liquor. Edwin Bartlett, 40 years old, lay on the narrow iron bed, his left hand resting on his chest, his expression serene, as if in deep sleep. Doug pressed his palm to the man's chest. Only icy stillness met his touch. He lifted his eyes to the lady of the house. "Madam," he said softly, "I'm afraid he has been dead 2 or 3 hours." The morning bells had yet to ring when the tragic news reached the Bartlett family. Edwin's father arrived in haste, pushing through the gathering crowd and bending to place a kiss upon his son's forehead. In that moment, his raw grief clashed sharply with his daughter-in-law's composure. The old man straightened and insisted, "An inquest, at once." At his urging, the police recorded the case as a suspicious death. A coroner's team was summoned, and at 2:30 the following afternoon, the autopsy began. The surgical lights blazed overhead as 4 medical specialists closed in around the body. Before Dr. Murray, the lead pathologist, so much as opened the chest, his nose had already caught that odd sweet scent. When the ribs were spread, the smell grew stronger, cloyingly sugary, yet laced with a sharp, nauseating bite. Working carefully, they removed the stomach and intestines and set them into clean glass jars. The moment the stomach wall was slit open, acrid fumes rushed out. Inside, they found nearly 100 milliliters of a clear liquid, chloroform. What shocked them was not the dose, but the route. The mouth, pharynx, and esophagus were pristine, showing none of the usual burns or corrosion. Yet the posterior wall and fundus of the stomach displayed raw patches and vivid inflammation. Further examination revealed nothing amiss in the liver, kidneys, spleen, lungs, or brain, and the skin bore no ligature marks, bruises, or other signs of struggle. The final report was stark. Cause of death, chloroform poisoning. Method of ingestion, unexplained. Chloroform was first synthesized in 1831 and by 1847 had found its way onto the operating table, swiftly supplanting ether as the anesthetic of choice. It carries a sweet, cooling odor. A few drops are enough to send a patient into slumber, while an overdose depresses the heart muscle and can bring breathing to a sudden halt. In Victorian chemists' shops, obtaining chloroform was not difficult, yet the quantities dispensed were tiny. Typically a cloth moistened with a few drops, or a dab applied by dentists to numb the gums. The doctors scoured the medical literature, but could locate no precedent for swallowing a full 100 milliliters without so much as blistering the throat. That, as the London papers soon dubbed it, was the city's latest medical paradox. The police returned to the house for another sweep. Closets, under the bed, even the kitchen scraps, but found no bottle that might have held chloroform. They next examined the chemist's ledgers, since anyone purchasing a toxic chemical was required by law to sign the register. The discovery was startling. The books of 3 separate pharmacies all named the same man, the Reverend George Dyson. When first questioned, Dyson flatly denied everything. It was only when the sales records were laid out on the table that he admitted the truth. On the 28th to 29th of December, he had visited 3 chemists, purchasing in total about 4 ounces, roughly 110 milliliters, of pure chloroform. He had insisted on the very purest and rejected the pharmacist's suggestion of the safer camphorated formulation. Finding the small vials insufficient, he demanded larger ones. Afterward, he poured all the chloroform into a single new glass bottle, tore off its label, and tossed the empties into a bin on the corner. Early the next morning, while out walking, he delivered the bottle to Andret alone. His explanation was simple. The lady had said her husband had a toothache and needed chloroform. Yet every pharmacist agreed. Such a quantity was far beyond anything required for toothache relief. When the police pressed Andret about the bottle's whereabouts, her story shifted again and again, riddled with contradictions. At first, she insisted she had never even seen a bottle of chloroform. Confronted with the Reverend's testimony, she admitted she had taken it, but claimed that after the incident, fearing suspicion, she tossed the remaining liquid out of a train window and flung the empty bottle into a pond. Her reasons for possessing the chloroform changed as well. Initially, she said it was to ease her husband's toothache. Later, she asserted that Bartlett had recently forced himself upon her, and the chloroform was meant for self-defense, adding, almost as an afterthought, that her husband had once consented to the idea. Yet no matter how diligently the police searched, the elusive bottle was never found. The case grew even murkier. 3 months earlier, Edwin had quietly redrafted his will, bequeathing his entire estate to Andret, and most unusually, appointing George Dyson as one of the executors. In polite society, the gossip was relentless. Could it be that money, not chloroform, was the real poison? Let us wind the clock back to the final 24 hours of Edwin's life. On the evening of 31st of December, a maid from the neighboring house overheard him in the drawing room, speaking with great enthusiasm about the New Year's breakfast and asking that his favorite cod be prepared first thing the next morning. At 10:35 p.m., Andret gave the maid a clear instruction.
Do not enter the room again tonight.
The door was then shut and not another sound emerged. The knock on the door at 4 a.m. was the beginning of it all. Had the story ended there, it would have been little more than a baffling case of poisoning. But a glance into the Bartlett's history shows a marriage built on sand. In April 1875, the 30-year-old grocer-turned-man of means Edwin secretly wed 19-year-old Andret in Croydon. His parents were absent, and the world knew almost nothing of the bride, only that she appeared to have a touch of French blood. The day after the wedding, Edwin sent his wife to a ladies' academy in North London and later to a Belgian convent for further finishing. Husband and wife met only during school holidays and did not truly live together until 1877. On one occasion, Andret tearfully confided to the family doctor that Edwin had imposed a no-consummation clause, declaring, "A man ought to have 2 wives, one for companionship and one for service, and you, madam, are the former." Outwardly, they were a married couple. In truth, they lived more like brother and sister. Yet Andret longed to be a mother, and at last she persuaded Edwin to break his rule. She became pregnant, but the labor proved excruciating. When the midwife urged that a physician be called, Edwin flatly refused, insisting that no other man must touch her. The child was stillborn, and while Andret writhed in agony, her husband stood by, watching with icy detachment. There was another decidedly eerie detail. Edwin once confided to the family doctor that he could draw energy from his wife. Late at night, he would stand over the sleeping Andret, arms raised for 2 full hours, feeling her life force stream from her body into his, after which he would slip contentedly into sleep. The most bizarre chapter was still to come. In late 1884, the Bartletts met the Reverend George Dyson at church, and within a few short months he had become a fixture in their household. At Edwin's invitation, he gave Andret private lessons in Latin, history, and mathematics. An old coat and a pair of slippers were kept for him in the hall. On days when Edwin was out, Dyson would arrive in the morning, sit until dusk, and then stay to share the evening meal. Edwin even asked Dyson to kiss his wife in front of him, watching with a strange, almost jubilant delight. In one letter, he wrote to the clergyman, "My dear George, the love letters you send to Andret move me to tears." The summer of 1885 found Edwin footing the bill for Dyson to join them on a seaside holiday. After they moved house, he bought the minister a season rail pass so that he might visit whenever he pleased. Was this morbid adulation, an unconventional passion, or something still more calculating? No one could say. Before we go any further, let's recap the puzzles at the heart of this case. How did the chloroform reach Edwin's stomach without leaving a trace in his throat? Who is the killer? The unflappable wife? The obliging clergyman? Or a husband who staged his own death? What was the motive? Love, money, control, or some twisted blend of all three? We've now covered the key evidence and testimony. In the next video, we'll step into the detective's shoes and explore the leading theories behind Edwin's death. If this mystery has you hooked, hit subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next episode.